Welcome to John's Corner, where our star reporter Jonathan always lands on his feet. He's a hard-hitting reporter who isn't afraid to throw a punch or to take one. He's always investigating the issues that others shy away from, uncovering even the biggest of scandals, while learning every secret he can. Here on John's Corner. What's up, Blue Nation? It's your boy Jonathan, and welcome back to John's Corner. I'm your host, Jonathan. Aren't I lovely? Today, we talk about arguably one of the greatest, and I say arguably because, I'll be honest, Batman the Animated Series may give it a run for its money, but arguably the greatest cartoon ever made, X-Men the Animated Series. Now, I don't know how many of you remember that show. If you don't, what's wrong with you? But it's awesome. It's beyond awesome. It's like what happens when you take awesome and holy shit, that was incredible, put them in a blender, and the end result, it's spectacular. Like Spider-Man. Anyway, so apparently there was a show in Hungary in the 80s about a policewoman named Linda who had arguably this, I guess, the same theme song. And so the guy who now owns that theme song in 2017 copyrighted in the US and is suing Marvel for that theme song. So yeah, let's follow that. He copyrighted in the US in 2017 and is now suing for a intro song for a show that hasn't been on the air in over 20 years. That makes perfect sense to me. I just it's the most logical thing you could do. It makes perfect sense. He also says that all the success Marvel has had since then has stemmed from that being the intro song on the X-Men cartoon animated series. So forget the amazing actors, forget the incredible storylines, forget all of that. The intro song is the only reason any of us loved that show. And Avengers Endgame only made $2 billion because of it. He's also suing Amazon, which I don't know what Amazon has to do with it. This dude is clearly just doing a cash grab. But let's be fair. Let's put on the first song and see for ourselves. Here's the X-Men animated theme song.
Previously on X-Men.
I just love that when that starts. How does that not? Doesn't that just make you want to watch X-Men again? That's the greatest theme song, I think. You'd be hard pressed to find another one as good. You would. Now let's hear this Linda the policewoman. All right, yeah, no, there's definitely similarities there. Definitely similarities. But are there similarities because they stole it, or are there similarities because two people just happen to come up with a kind of a similar thing? I'm a big believer that creativity is in the ether. It's in the air. And numerous people can come up with the same concepts around the same time. Look at how so many different places around the world, pyramids showed up around the same time. At a time when the world was so vast and no one could travel to all the different places, South America, Egypt, like, come on. Now you can either go there as aliens, or you can go that ideas are in the ether and different people have very similar ideas. It's completely... I like the cartoon. All right, I'm going to stand by it. I support X-Men, but no, you definitely see there are some similarities there. I don't understand why they're suing in 2019 and not back in the 90s. You know? It's been a long time since the show's even been on the air. And what's the statute of limitations on this? I feel like the window to sue for that is long since expired. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it unfolds. It's just interesting that this is even a thing. So in other news, the great Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg are making a essentially a third entry into their World War II series. The first one is Band of Brothers, which is one of the greatest shows ever made, about the army fighting the Nazis during World War II. And like every episode is bookend with interviews with the real guys who the characters in the show are based off of. Such a well-made show. Then there was the second show in the series, which I was more predisposed to like, which was the Pacific, mainly because it was about the Marines fighting the Japanese during World War II. And my grandfather was a Marine who fought in Japan in World War II. But I don't know what it was, but those characters weren't as memorable. It might have been the fact that they didn't do the bookends on either side with the people who lived through it, which I thought was the best part of Band of Brothers. It made it so much more real. But this next one is going to be, I guess, produced by HBO, but air on Apple TV, which, great, another thing I have to sign up for. And it's going to be based on the book Masters of the Air. I don't know if it's going to be named that, but I don't imagine why they won it. And I guess it's going to take place in kind of like the dogfights that were happening over there, which is awesome because World War II was the first time when there was really those kind of fights, you know, in the air and all that. I'm excited for it. I love Band of Brothers. I love the Pacific. I know I'm going to love this. I mean, Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, what better team can you ask for? Another exciting news. They just announced that they're doing a Maniac Cop TV show. I don't know if you guys remember that 80s movie, Maniac Cop, but starring Bruce Campbell. And it's about like this zombie cop who's going around killing people. Apparently they're making a TV show based off of it, which I am beyond excited for. We never got the Friday the 13th TV show. Well, unless you count the actual Friday the 13th TV show that had nothing to do with Jason Voorhees. Lost Boys kind of seems to have disappeared in the ether. So I'm excited. I think this is going to be awesome. I am completely 100% on board for Maniac Cop TV show. If you guys haven't yet, you should check out the movie before the show comes out, just to kind of see what it is and see if it's your wheelhouse. But it's a lot of cheesy fun. So let's talk about some cool stuff. This is very localized, but I just went to a haunted house in Plano called The Dark Hour. If you guys live in the area, you know, the DFW area, you should definitely check it out. It's easily, I don't want to give away like what's in the house or anything like that. But if you live in the area, you should check it out. It's one of the best ones I've been in the Metroplex. And it starts off with like a mini play. I've never seen that at a horror haunted house before. A mini play starting it off. It was so fun. You should definitely check it out. You can get 2 haunted houses for $40 there. It's well worth it. And the first one's really long. Like, you're in there for a while. And it doesn't feel long, but I'm just saying, like, it's well worth it. You should definitely check it out. We also got not 1, but 2 Star Trek shorts, which I'm loving these Star Trek shorts. The first one was called Q&As, which was where number 1 and it was Spock's first day on the Enterprise, and number 1 is kind of shown on the ropes, and they get stuck on a turbo lift, and they're just talking. She tells him that he's a science officer. He's in the science department. He needs to ask question after question after question. So he's just asking all these questions, and she's answering them. And it's a real fun bonding experience, and kind of lets us see why Spock is so stoic. Not just because he's a Vulcan, but that when he got to the Enterprise, he had a little more human side, and she told him to put it under check. It was a cool character study of these 2 characters. And the other one was The Trouble with Edward, which I think might have just... Q&As, the second it came out, jumped to being one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. And then The Trouble with Edward, which came out a few days later, blew past it. It gives us an origin, not an origin story to the Tribbles, but an origin story as to why the Tribbles are the way they are as we know them. And it's so much fun. If you like the Next Gen episode, Hollow Pursuits, where you meet Barclay, it's very reminiscent of that. A Starfleet officer who is good at his job but completely incompetent. And what happens? And there's a post-credit scene of that one that you need to watch. Just please go check it out. I'm telling you, man, Pike is in both of them, and if they give an Enterprise show for Pike, if they give Pike his own show, he might supplant Kirk as my favorite captain. The dude is so incredible at it. And why can't we get a season 2 of Inhumans? I don't know. I like the show. I might be the only one, but I like the show. But enough about that stuff. I actually have a guest today. I'm gonna do a in studio interview with the one, is this teleprompter right? I'm I'm interviewing myself. Okay. Well, I guess I have an interview with Jonathan Goodheight. So let's go head over there, shall we? Today I have with me the incredible, the talented. You forgot young. The young, oh so young, Jonathan Goodheight. Hello? Editor Jonathan, could you just give him what he wants, please? Thank you. Thank you. Was that so much to ask for? Not at all. So let's just get into this interview, shall we? Oh, I am so ready. I'm so excited for this. When they first called me, like I was just down the hall chugging away because I'm not really the Jonathan that they call for anything. They just kind of keep me in there working away. I just completely forgotten to the whole world. But when I got this phone call, I was so excited. Focus. Sorry, what was the question? I didn't ask one. Right. Let me just tell you, you're doing an amazing job. I'm really proud of you. Thank you. You're welcome, man. This was great. I really mean it. What was? I haven't even asked any questions yet. Oh, right. I'm so sorry. I'm really nervous. Like, I've never been on a show like this before. At least of all for my own writing. So like I'm really on edge right now, but also like really excited. Don't be. But while you're talking about writing, let's just get into that. So what have you been working on lately? Thank you for asking. Right. So I am currently in the midst of writing. We're gonna actually have to get back to the rest of the show. Now? Yeah, this actually went a little bit long. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you for coming on the show today, Jonathan. Thank you for having me, Jonathan. This is really going to help in the cells of war. Yeah, so that was my first in-house interview with myself. Yeah, it went great. Hope you guys enjoyed that. But without further ado, let's get into our other show, shall we? What's up? Today on Nostalgia 100, we're talking about the great 80s slasher film, Maniac Cop. It's a little lesser known than a lot of the bigger mainstream ones, but it's fun. It's a Bruce Campbell film. So if you're a big fan of Evil Dead or Burn Notice or My Name is Bruce, which is one of my favorite movies. I met him once, Bruce Campbell. And I told him I love that movie, and his response was, yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? It's like, come on, I don't know. I think it's one of his greatest movies, but I didn't get the impression he was overly fond of it. But anyways, Maniac Cop. It's about a cop who's a maniac, which, come on. Anyway, so there's a string of murders being committed by a person who's dressed like a cop. And so Bruce Campbell's character gets blamed. He's playing a cop as well. He gets blamed for the murders, and so the police arrest him, and they're trying to hunt him down. And he's trying to break away and prove he's innocent. And the real killer turns out to be like this zombified cop who was wrongfully arrested for a crime he didn't commit. And he's trying to bring down all the people who set him up. So it's not only a fun slasher movie, but it also has social commentary on it, which I think is fun and not enough horror movies do. Now, it's not just a one-hit wonder. There's a sequel. There's two, actually. There's a Maniac Cop... Blah, blah, blah. There's a Maniac Cop 2 and a Maniac Cop 3. They're not as good as the first one, but they're still enjoyable. And they're currently working on a TV show, which I am beyond excited about. So you should definitely check it out. It's well worth your time. Plus, anything with Bruce Campbell in it is well worth your time. But till next time, this is Nostalgia 100. I'm your host, Jonathan. Give us legends. And that was great. Now let's learn about TV from a kid from the 90s. What's up, Blue River Nation? We got a doozy of a 90s kid guide to television for you today. Why is it such a doozy? Because it's one of my favorite shows of all time. It's technically a cartoon, but I would put this cartoon up with just about any live action show. Why is it so great? Well, for starters, it's the only time they've gotten the X-Men right outside of comic books. Literally the only time. What am I talking about? Of course, X-Men the animated series. Come on. And you might be asking yourself, what makes it so great? Well, lawsuit aside, that intro was incredible. And I'm not just talking about not just the intro. Also, the closing credits where the action figures would be rotating around. Like, no other show does something like that. It was so cool, and it was just, you would look forward to the credits, opening and outro, almost as much as the show itself, which is saying something because the show itself was on point. Because, I mean, which is really saying something because, like, everything from the animation to the acting to the storylines, all of it just, it really brought the comic books to life in a way that nothing has ever been able to do. Not even the MCU, and that's saying something. Because the MCU is damn near perfection. But this cartoon did it better. It did. I'm sorry. It just did. And they're talking about potentially bringing it back, which if they do, oh my God, I'd be so excited. I would be so on board. You know how many great X-Men storylines have happened since that cartoon that would be amazing to see? Like, we could get House of M, which would then lead to Decimation. We can get Avengers versus X-Men. We can get X-Men versus Inhumans. We could get Utopia. We could get the Phoenix Five. Like, a lot of cool storylines that we could play with. Cyclops going kind of rogue. Cyclops and Emma Frost dating after Jean Grey dies. Like, oh my, there'd be so much cool stuff that they could do continuing off from those storylines moving forward that I just think would be awesome. That was relatively unexplored yet, you know? But those are just storylines that they could do. Let's talk about storylines that they did. You got Morph storylines, which was one of the greatest storylines ever put to celluloid or film or whatever you want to call it. What with his death in the opening two-parter, Sinister bringing him back, him going kind of crazy and evil and trying to destroy the X-Men to his quasi-redemption. It was such an emotional soap opera-packed storyline. Done so well for a Saturday morning cartoon. Then you got the Apocalypse storyline and Warren becoming Archangel and all of that drama. You got Magneto and Asteroid M. You got the Savage Land. You got all the stuff with Senator Kelly. You got the Bishop coming back in time to save his future. Cable coming back in time. You got the Genosa storyline and the repercussions of governments going corrupt. It was such a heavy thinking show. And it was aimed for kids, but it never talked down to them. The Dark Phoenix saga, right, which is something that the writer of The Last Stand and the Dark Phoenix had 2 tries at and still couldn't get it right. Like, it was created and crafted by people who clearly knew and loved and lived and breathed that material. And it shows on screen with the care that they put into it, which you are hard pressed to find and stuff. Except I'd argue the Arrowverse kind of does that, and the Netflix Marvel shows and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But X-Men animated series still blows them all off the water. I mean, it's the only thing that comes close and might possibly pass it at that much is the Batman animated series. So for a show that has this much depth and revolves so much around characters, it's hard to pick a favorite character. Now, I know all of you guys who've been watching these programs will all know that I'm a big fan of Cyclops. Huge Cyclops fan. Believe it or not, I hated Cyclops for a long time because of this show. The first two-parter, he leaves Morph to die. And it's just like, what is wrong with him? I thought he was a horrible leader. I hated Cyclops for the longest time. It wasn't until they started taking everything away from him in the comics that I realized, like, oh, I like this guy. So in this one, it's hard. There's so many characters to choose from, but I got to go Morph. That storyline, that redemption arc is just so on point. It's just so heartbreaking and rewarding at the same time to see the struggles that man goes through and the ups and downs, and it's a perfect story. Now, number 5 is a bit of a cheat. It's a two-parter from season 2, episode 12 and 13, Reunion. That's the one where Xavier and Magneto get stranded in the Savage Land with their powers missing. They don't have access to their powers, and Xavier can walk. What? And it turns out it's all a trap by Mr. Sinister to lure the other X-Men in. But it's so fun, especially the first episode in it, because it's Magneto and Xavier kind of bonding, and you get to see glimpses of the friendship that was before their ideologies tore them apart. And it's really fun just to see them connect, and these two larger than life figures relating together on a personal level. And that even though their ideologies are opposed to each other, that there's still that bond and that camaraderie that comes from all the things that they've struggled together. It's just such a beautiful episode, or episodes, because it's a two-parter. And it really gives you a glimpse of the heart of what that show is. All right, number 4 is another two-parter. Season 4, episode 6, Sanctuary. Now this is where Magneto, fed up with how Earth treats mutants and everything that's going on, creates Asteroid M and brings some of the mutant population with him. And everything's kind of going swimmingly until his main lackey, who's been kind of supercharging him, turns on him and expels him from the island and goes to war with Earth. Meanwhile, the X-Men are trying to save Gambit. It's a whole thing, but it's such a fun entry into it that kind of shows you politics, and it's good sci-fi. You should definitely check it out. It's a great entry into the series. Number three. Season 2, episode 9, A Rogue's Tale. Now this episode, well, if you're fans of the movie Captain Marvel, you should probably avoid this episode. But it's a great episode that really shows the insights into who Rogue is and what she deals with every day. It shows that sometimes having great powers is not a blessing but a curse, and how hard her life is and all the struggles she goes through. A lot of the story is told in flashbacks from back when she was part of the Brotherhood, working for her stepmom or adopted mom or whatever the hell Mystique is to her. And she absorbs Carol Danvers' power. For those of you back at the time, I think when this cartoon, I think she was Warbird. She's gone by a bunch of different names. Obviously, the movies, she's Captain Marvel. And Rogue absorbed her powers and absorbed so much of it that she kept them permanently. If you liked Captain Marvel's powers in this, minus the energy rejection, those are Rogue's powers in this cartoon, along with her absorbing people's powers and skills, because she absorbed so much of Carol Danvers, and she kept her inside of her. Like, part of her personality became Carol Danvers, and this is taken straight from the comics. For a long time, Rogue had those powers. Rogue had all of that. And she actually put Carol Danvers in a coma for a long time, how bad she absorbed it. So she lived with that guilt. Humble brag, actually the comic is based off of a royal reprint of it anyways, but so it's a great issue. So check out both the comic book and the episode. Number 2, season 1, episode set, Slave Island. Now this part of a two-parter, but it's mainly this one episode I love just because it shows you just how corrupt governments can be. Now Genosa was supposed to be like a mutant sanctuary, and oh, come mutants, we'll protect you, we'll keep you safe here. But they were really enslaving them and using them for cheap labor. And it deals with the inhumanity and the immorality that people in power use to manipulate the people who are under them. The people who they can. It shows how corrupting power can be, and how just because someone is different doesn't make them less human than you, and how people view other people. It's a heartbreaking episode, and you can't help but be angry watching it. It's a great episode with really good social commentary. And the number 1 spot is the series opener, season 1, episode 1 and 2, Night of the Sentinels. It starts the show off strong. I would actually put this pilot up there with just about any live action pilot, except maybe The Shield. And because it's just so good, it gets you get to know all the characters right off the bat. And it sets up so many long-running storylines. Morph's death, the triangle between Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine, Beast going to prison. All of that is all set up in this two-parter, and it's set up so well. Cyclops and Wolverine butting heads constantly. A lot of it has to do with Morph's death. It's such a well-crafted pilot that almost right off the bat it makes you feel like you know all of these characters and that you're there, you're part of it. It's fun. It's great. I don't know. This is one of my favorite episodes on the show. It's just a great opener. And overall, it's one of my favorite shows. You should really check it out if you haven't seen it. Although I'm sure most of you have seen it. And yeah, I really hope they do bring it back for more because that would be awesome. But anyways, till next time, this is the 90 Kids Guide to Television. I'm Jonathan. Give us legends. Well, thanks for that incredibly in-depth commentary on a cartoon, which we seem to have all the time in the world for, but my interview, we only had like that much time. Whatever. I don't decide these things. Moving on, our final show for the day. Jonathan, wake up. God damn it. If it's not one thing, it's another. I swear to... That's it for the John's Corner today. Just give us legends.